Today we're going to talk about web as a building block of emerging technologies, right? So I'm Saurabh.
And I'm Sweta.
And we work as mobile solution consultant, which means we work with partners like you to make sure you're making most out of the web for your users and business.
Saurabh, do you know how many connected devices we had in 2017?
2017?
Yeah.
Let's test my GK later. Let's present right now.
Wait, hear me out. We actually had 8 billion connected devices in 2017 itself.
Wow, that means more than one device per person already.
Exactly. And by the end of next year, we'll have roughly 3 devices per person.
Given the population is still in control.
That's true.
Let me throw some stats at you as well right now. So what you just said is very relevant for India, because we see 40% new users coming online from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Now, what these users primarily use is smartphones or very low-end feature smartphones to come to internet. 70% of the phones that they use are actually Android Go.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure we can all agree that the common platform that all of these users use multiple times a day is the web, right?
Yeah.
So, web is the only platform that can reach all of your users. And as many of you in the audience are from the sub-2K era, I'm sure we can all agree that 20 years ago, the web was the only way that we could access and consume digital content.
Being only one, I think I know how the web would be feeling at that time. Kabhi lagta hai Punich Bhagwan hai.
And regardless of changing times, the web has always adapted and maintained its reach.
Right, but despite that, I think despite being very flexible and accommodative, I think web is still made to feel like this. मुझसे कोई भी नहीं करता माँ. And the reason for that is the number of new platforms coming up every now and then. I think I just ponder sometime, if this keeps happening, what will happen to the future of web?
Well, nothing.
Nothing?
Yeah. Web is like that hero from the typical Ekta Kapoor serial who never dies.
Oh, I thought that superpower was only applicable for the star cast of like Ekta Kapoor.
Well, speaking of superpowers, let's have a look at some of the superpowers that the web has. So today, we want to talk to you about 3 superpowers that the web has, which makes it a building block for emerging technologies.
Yeah, let's start with interoperable. So the definition of interoperable is, if 2 products or programs are interoperable, they can be used together. Simply put, jo bhi lao do lana.
Oh my God, enough of your bad mimicry, Saurabh. Let's take a look at some examples of how the web is actually interoperable.
Yeah.
The first one is stories, which are powered by AMP.
Yep, most of us have seen the story format across social media. I think they are interesting and very excited content to consume. But I think they don't scale very well on the open web because they aren't shareable, linkable, or some even vanishes after 24 hours.
Yes, you're right, Saurabh. And AMP Stories actually changes this by being able to be discoverable by search engines. And you can even use stories to link to other parts of the web. So let's say you created a new story, you can actually link it out to another web page, which is your article page. Or if you're a travel site, you can even create an AMP story about, let's say, a trip to Tokyo and link it out to a web page, which is your booking page.
Oh, so that's where it becomes interoperable. But I really want to understand, why do we need another story format?
That's a great question. So the AMP team has been working on developing this format for a long time and interviewing users. And in fact, even a Forrester consulting report found that nearly 2/3 of those whom they surveyed preferred a tappable story format compared to the equivalent scrolling article.
But how many of you think actually it's very difficult to build? I see no hands.
Very optimistic
yeah,
crowd.
you're absolutely right. It's not difficult to build at all. Actually, think of AMP stories as magazines, right? And the pages within magazines as those AMP story pages. And that's what exactly you see from the tags that you have here. What you see in white is the AMP code, a very simple AMP code. And if you have already built site on AMP, you can roll it out like just in minutes.
Wow, that's pretty awesome actually. And so we know that stories are interoperable with the web, but I want to take this one step further. And for that, I need to introduce you to a good friend of mine.
Oh, I thought I'm your good friend.
Yes, you are, Saurabh. But I want to introduce you to another good interoperable friend of mine.
Which is?
And that's the Google Assistant.
Oh.
So the Assistant is a great way to acquire users. Did you know that according to a recent study by We Are Social, they actually found that 5 in 10 Indians use voice search and commands. And that's actually the highest among all of the countries that they surveyed, and they surveyed a lot of countries, right?
Whoa, so that means if you're built for web, you can use it anywhere, like Assistant.
Yes.
That's pretty powerful.
Yes, exactly. And in this example, we can see how the assistant is interoperable with the web. Let's say I want to watch Mission Mangal, right? And I'm asking the assistant that I want to watch Mission Mangal. And without even installing anything, the assistant knows that, hey, Book My Show can actually help me buy my tickets. And the user is actually taken into the web page to complete that transaction and to buy that ticket.
Wow.
That's very interoperable indeed, right?
Right. It took the interoperability to next level, and I think building actions is no more a Mission Mangal.
And a number of e-commerce companies actually went taking it to the next level. So Walmart, for example, wrote their own dedicated assistant action because they wanted more control over their experience.
Yeah. For example, if I just say, OK, Google, ask Walmart to add apples to my cart, what Walmart app has done, it remembers your shopping history and preferences and selects the type of apples you want and directly adds to the cart, just like this.
Right. And you can even be deep linked straight to the PWA to complete that final step of the transaction.
Yeah, so this is how the checkout page that you built for your web can actually be reused on Assistant. Who said not having transaction of Assistant was a roadblocker for you? So Shweta, should we look at the next superpower?
Yes. Let's talk about embeddable. So embeddable means having the ability to be incorporated into something else.
Well, I don't know who thought about this, but this certainly isn't embeddable. Not everything is embeddable, for sure.
That's true, but the web certainly is. And the first feature in this embeddable series I want to talk to you about is portals. So you can think of portals as the next generation of iframes, which empowers you to make seamless and really fast transition between pages. And I'm sure you heard a lot about it in Kenji's talk earlier. So in this example, Times of India is actually using portals to transition between their recipe pages, right? And you can see that the transition is not only seamless, it's so fast, it's almost instant. And the transition doesn't just have to be within your own domain, it can even be to another domain.
I think one of the interesting things about Portal is that you don't really need to worry about the tech stack that you want to use. Now, what you see here are two examples. On your left, you see a web manga viewer, which was developed by the Manga Stories in Japan. And what they're using is, they use Portal for smooth transition so that their multi-page app looks like a single-page app. And what you see on the right-hand side is, we have integrated a third-party page into the my main page, and when I focus on that, it changes the URL to that. So basically the point is, you get the complete power of how you want to manage your transitions. The one thing to note though is that you can't use portals within iframes, because as and when it gets focused, it changes the URL. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go to web.dev hands-on portals.
That's great. So we saw how the web can be embedded in web, right? But can it be embedded in other platforms?
Oh yes, very much. And one of the examples for that is AMP for email. So what AMP for email does is, it lets you write code that will make the email interactive. Now think of it this way. If you are a hotelier or if you are a restaurant owner and you want the users to actually share the feedback with you or star rating, why would a user go to an email first, click on the link, go to your page, wait for your page to load, and then give you the rating? Right? If you would have given that option within the email itself, it would have been so much easier for them. This is what GoIbibo has actually done. So they need the hotelier's feedback very regularly. And that's where they implemented this B2B use case to be done. Now, they got some really cool increase in numbers, and all that is actually published in one of the blog posts available on amp.dev. I highly recommend you to go through that.
Let's also take a look at a code example. So building an AMP for email is actually not that difficult. AMP emails must identify themselves as such by including the AMP for email in the HTML tag. Next, in the header, you need to include the AMP runtime script and a CSS boilerplate which initially hides the AMP content until the AMP runtime is loaded. Now, if you've worked with emails before, adding a script into an email may set off alarm bells in your head. But rest assured, the email providers who actually work on AMP and support it have fierce security measures to make sure only vetted AMP scripts can be run. So you get dynamic and interactive emails with the security as well.
Yep.
And next, we build the body of the email. So in this example, we have a heading and a carousel which the users can actually scroll through in the email itself.
So we saw that writing the code is pretty simple, but one thing that you need to make sure while making use of the AMP for email is that it needs to support the MIME type text/XAMPP HTML. And the reason for that is it's only when the email client recognizes this MIME type, it renders the email as dynamic one. So as a developer, you need to make sure that if you're using a third-party service, or that it should support this MIME type, right? If you want to really get your hands dirty, you can try the first link here, and if that convinces you to stay invested, you can learn more using the second link. And for the few of you who are still thinking what exactly AMP is, amp.dev is your friend.
That's really cool. Now, speaking further on embeddability, what if we could put a web application into the Play Store, right? And that is very much possible today with trusted web activities, which PJ just talked about, right? So you can build a web application and put it on the Play Store as a TWA as long as you adhere to the Google Play policies and you have a quality PWA that is both installable and fast.
Yep, there are some partner examples here at the bottom, but let me tell you more about Oyo. So Oyo Rooms built a very great TWA, which is fast and smooth. It uses very less data, and as well like very less data, less space on the phone. So basically, that's a one step closer to make the experience for even the remotest of the users to make a booking without any problems. And what we see here is somebody from their team actually presenting in Google for India this year, where they talked about how transmitting from web to a PWA gave them an uplift of 2.2x times. And when they converted that to a TWA, they got a further uplift of 2.6x times.
Wow, that's actually a great way to reach out to users, isn't it? But was it very complicated for them to build?
Not really. So if you look here, you essentially just have to do 4 steps to convert your PWA into a TWA. Of course, you can do more tweaks, but just to get started and roll out your first version, what you can do is just check out this code, import it into Android Studio, make 3 changes into your build.gradle file, which is hostname, the website that you are the owner of, the name of your choice, which is Ola Lite in the previous case, and then the application ID, which is very specific to your Android application that you just rolled out. The last and the most important point is that you need to create the asset link and upload it to your well-known folder, because that's when you are able to build that trust between your website and the app, that this is the website that I own. And tada, you're done.
That's actually not as complicated as I thought, right? Now, email and Play Store are not the only ways that the web is embeddable. Google Pay recently launched the Spot platform on the Google Pay app. Spots allow businesses to create customized and branded experiences within Google Pay itself. So if you are in the business of selling bags and your customers didn't really know about your website or app, they can simply tap on your Spot in the Google Pay app and they can access a website-like experiences and they can browse through your products and even make a purchase.
But what does web has to do with the Spot platform? I thought we were talking about superpowers of web, like being embeddable.
Yes, let me give you an example for that. So a Spot is actually built using HTML and JavaScript. So existing investments in the web or a PWA can easily be transformed into a Spot with just a few lines of JavaScript. So in this case, Coffee Spot's web experience is in a way embedded in the Google Pay app.
Oh, gotcha.
So we just showed you how the web has been helping other platforms to leverage itself. But what is the web getting in return?
What is web getting in return? Right, that's a good question. Let me think. Okay, let me put an analogy which might resonate with the people here. So, do you agree that if I say that web is like Sunil Shetty from movie Dhadkan?
Oh, not again.
No, hear me out. So, web is like Sunil Shetty from movie Dhadkan. मैं तुम्हें भूल जाओ, ये हो नहीं सकता, और तुम मुझे भूल जाओ, ये मैं होने नहीं दूंगा.
Okay, that's actually pretty good. I have to give it to you.
That brings us to the third and the last superpower of web, which is transformative. Now, transformative means that causing a major change to something or someone, especially in a way that makes it or them better.
So the first one in this transformative series that we want to talk about is something that probably caught your eye if you saw Sundar's keynote in I/O this year.
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about. Duplex on the web. How many of you got excited with this when you heard it for the first time? Yeah, we see quite a lot number of hands here. So we all know that we all have been trying to solve the problem of making it easier to purchase on the web. But we all know it's so difficult because the experiences are broken and there are too many steps involved. Now what ideally took 18 swipes and 18 taps and 10 swipes could now be done with 3 taps and 0 swipes if you're using Duplex on web.
That's right. And one of the examples of that is what you see here, which is an experiment where Duplex on the web can actually help to fill out and complete and submit an online form for you. And to get the necessary information, it uses Chrome autofill. So users can actually choose the information that they want to use in this transaction checkout flow.
So not only it reduces the chances of doing the errors by the users, it also increases the retention because we all know if there are more than 5 steps involved, people will drop off.
That's right. Now, another way in which the web is actually being transformative is in terms of virtual reality. So Web VR allows you to create immersive web experiences. And AR too, so maybe something like Pokemon Go on the web.
Oh, Pokemon Go, gotta catch them all. So while we thought that it would be very much relevant to put them in the series, we want to tell you about some of the caveats. So these features are still in experimental phase, and they have been in testing ever since. If you need to test them out, you still need to go back to the Chrome Canary version 70, 71, or 72.
That's right. The good thing is that you can still actually learn these technologies because the documentation and code labs are still available. Now, what's the next transformative capability?
But before I go there, let me ask the crowd, how many gamers in the house? Woo! How many gamers in the house? Yeah, quite a lot of you. Cool. So, I think if you're a gamer, you would have heard about the Stadia platform, right? Sorry? It's coming today. That's a very good question. So clap for you, if not for us. Cool, let's move on.
Now, one last thing in this transformative series that we wanted to talk about was WebAssembly. So WebAssembly is a web standard that enables you to bring native code to the web. So an application written in like C or C++ can actually be brought to the web, right? And it helps it to run on the web near native speed as well. And there's so many more things that we're doing in this regard, right? So for example, Flutter announced that they're going to work on Flutter for web.
And similarly, there are so many machine learning enthusiasts with a soft corner for web trying out TensorFlow.js. Now with this, let me show you a quick demo where we could actually show offline to online capabilities for product search using ML. Can you show the screen? Can you click on the camera? So these are the real, like these are all you. Like just say hi there to him. Yeah, can you scan a product there? Yeah. Okay, this is a watch. Yeah, click tick. Fingers crossed if it works. Oh,
yeah.
What you wanted was a watch, but what you got is a cheaper option. So they're looking at like cheaper options right now.
Yeah. Not enough watches cost too much, let's just buy this thing.
Cool, I have to admit that failed. Cool, let's go back. Now with this demo, I ideally would have said that as a web developer, you could have said to your non-app developers, this. But didn't work, so it's like I'm on the receiving end right now. Cool.
But Saurabh, regardless of what you say, you know, if you're building for native, you have a choice. You have a lot of building blocks,
That's
right? But when you're building for the web, your options seem kind of limited.
Right. I know what you're exactly saying, because as a web developer, sometimes I feel that with the limited capabilities that I have in hand, I can only build this much, while I probably wanted to build this. And as a native developer, probably you can achieve that. And that's where, as a web developer, I have to say to them, cheating karta hai tu.
And that's actually where Project Fugu comes in.
Project Fugu? Fugu is a Japanese fish. Are you fishing around? Is Google getting into the fishing business now?
Oh, please. Project Fugu is so much more cooler than that fish. So what it actually is that it enables web applications to do anything that the native apps can by bringing those native capabilities up to the web as well. And we do this while maintaining the user trust, privacy, security, and other core tenets of the web.
And there are tons of such APIs which are available already, and you might have heard about. For example, now web authentication is actually possible. You can actually use web authentication for users to actually swipe and get into your application as logged in. Similarly, there is something called as Web Share API and SMS OTP Retriever, which probably you guys have heard so many times. But just to give you a demo, can we please quickly go to the demo? For the ones who are not, who are having the like mobile, you can probably go to this link yourself. It has a list of all the Fugu APIs that are currently available, and you can test it out yourself. Are we doing the demo?
Give us 1 second.
So for the people who are already on this link, you can probably try out SMS Retriever yourself. You can go there, and then it will ask you to send a message. So you don't have to set up a server to send you a message. You can copy that from your another phone and like send it. So irrespective of who is sending it, you will be able to clear it.
Yeah. And if you actually go to this URL as well, there's tons of demos on all of the other capabilities from Project Fugu as well.
Right. So well, in interest of time, let's move on. Well, these are some of the partners who have already built this and rolled it out in production. Now, when I say rolled out in production, they are not using the final production version of SMS Receiver API. They are using the original trial version of it. That means you need to register for it and get a token for you to able to use it in the production. Now, another cool API in this series is Contact Picker API, which probably you guys have already heard of. I want to just focus on one of the use cases which GoIbibo is doing. Now, for example, if I am the logged in user on GoIbibo and I want to make a booking for Shweta, I certainly probably won't remember her phone number or something. So that's where I am using this Contact Picker API on GoIbibo so that I can make a booking on her behalf. And that's around 15% of the transactions which are made on GoIbibo platform currently. With this, they are looking to expand onto the other use cases like Go Cash Plus. I'm sure you might have earned a lot of money using that.
So what you're basically saying is that these used to be the capabilities on web before, and over the past few months, we've actually added so many more capabilities to bridge that gap with native.
You can learn more about these capabilities by visiting this link. I'll give you a second to click a snap. And if you want to track what the status of each of the APIs is, or what are the ones which are planned in future, you can certainly visit this link, which is goo.gle/fugu-api-tracker.
Now, we want your feedback too. So if you've tried any of these APIs and you found some bugs, please do log them at bit.ly/fugu-bugs.
Now that we are coming almost close to our presentation, and like we'll spare you guys, but before that, we just want to summarize with the characteristics of web that we could show through what we showed today. Now, first one being, it puts others first.
It shuns the limelight. Web is not very much talked about.
Yep. It inspires through action, not just words. We keep our promises.
It always keeps improving, like the APIs that you just saw.
It plays through the strength of the teammates being the other platforms.
And it's the first tech Avengers superhero.
Did you just say Avengers?
Yes.
So if we use the analogy of platforms being Avengers, I'm sure that web is the Captain America.
That's actually very true. Speaking of superheroes, we also wanted to take a moment to thank Thomas and Dave because they've worked on similar content and demos which you've actually seen today.
Yeah, we shamelessly reuse a lot of it. And finally, I think we want to thank you, and you have been a lovely audience. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.